we're almost, well, we got about an hour and a half or so to go before we get home. But in part of that time, I'm going to utilize having my husband trapped in the vehicle with me.
Oh no!
So that we can talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly about our trip. And hopefully, if you watch this, that it might be helpful to you. So we started out in Oregon. As you know, we live here. But we stayed our first night in Hermiston. And from there, we went up into Washington.
And that was, don't know if that was the good or the bad part. It was good to see my folks. The beds were bad.
Yeah. They had 2 twin beds, so that was our first night having to sleep in separate beds. Did you see that?
Guy jumped, ran the stop sign.
Oh.
We almost had a T-bone there if I wasn't paying attention.
Wow. Okay. So, it's good we avoided an accident.
That could have been ugly.
It could have been really ugly. Okay. So our first official day of traveling was we left Oregon, went up into Washington.
We went to the Whitman Mission first.
I had never been there, but Scott had been there when he was in school.
A long time ago.
It was interesting, and we'll have a video on that. From the Whitman Mission, we left there and we went to Palouse Falls. But on the way to Palouse Falls, we found a place that neither one of us really thought about. That when we got to the Snake River, there was a cute little marina and RV park there that was nice, so we checked that out. And then we went on to Palouse Falls. And Palouse Falls was one of the things on my bucket list. I'd seen pictures of it before and thought it was beautiful, but when we got there, it was amazingly beautiful, in my opinion.
The good.
Most people that know me know that I've loved waterfalls for many, many years. I have my own book, or, well, not my book, but I didn't write it. But somebody gave me a book as a present that has all the waterfalls of the Pacific Northwest in it. And I've had it for many years. I just haven't had the opportunity to use it very much. But in the last year or so, we've been using it. So after we left Palouse Falls, we went to Lewiston, Idaho. And that was the first night that we spent the night on the road.
We went to the Quality Inn, and it was not so much in the form of quality. It was very disappointing. Thankfully, it was only for one night. But the best part about being in Lewiston was our dinner that night.
Yes, we went to a place called Jollymore, and let me tell you, it was well worth the money. It doesn't look all that fancy from the outside, but when you get inside and see it, it's pretty fancy, and they do an awesome job there, and I'm talking quality food. We were both impressed. We were very impressed.
Food was fantastic. The service was incredible. Inside, when you walked inside, you could tell he was in someplace special because they had a bunch of very expensive liquor and glass display cabinets throughout the entire eating area.
Yeah, with special items in them. And they didn't have all of their tables like in a row or whatever. They had these little nooks and you know, corners, and it's hard to explain. Like white tablecloths on the tables and set up nicely. It was very nice. I really enjoyed it. So from Lewiston, we drove through Idaho, and yeah, it was beautiful. Everywhere we went, it was beautiful.
Stopped off at a place called, I believe it was Bruce's Rock Shop, of course, of rocks.
Yeah.
He was a retired, let's see, he was in the Marines. He didn't retire from the Marines, but he was a retired geologist from the Army Corps of Engineers. He also did a lot of other work with the Corps of Engineers. He worked at McNary Dam in Umatilla, just up the road a little bit from where my dad retired from there in Umatilla. He had an incredible selection of rocks, incredible selection of equipment. It was really a true pleasure to sit and just talk to him for hours on end. Well, not for hours on end. I was there for an hour.
So after that, I believe, did we drive all the way through to Missoula?
No, we went to Victor first.
Oh yeah, that's right. Once we went through there, we took a different route than I thought that we were going to take. We ended up taking the route which takes us closer to Victor, which is a place I wanted to stop because of my family's has pioneers that came to Montana area, and my great-grandfather was born in Victor. So we wanted to check that out. I wanted to go to a museum that's there because it's a pioneer heritage museum. And unfortunately, they closed their doors a couple of weeks ago. And they're not open again until next April, I believe it was. So, yeah. And they did have people that you could call by appointment only, but it seemed like everybody was not available at the time that we were there. So that was a little disappointing, but oh well, not that big of a deal. We drove into Missoula, and Scott took me to what used to be Hell's Gate, or Hellgate. Hellgate later became Missoula, but when it was Hellgate, my great-great-great-grandfather became the first blacksmith in the area, and he was a pioneer. And right close to where the general store was, and I think there was another building attached. His blacksmith shop was attached to that other building, and then not far away is where his home was, and he had a barn that was being built and it hadn't been built quite yet, but the plumbers gang, one of the members of the plumbers gang, came to my great-great-great-grandfather's house. The vigilantes showed up, and they hung him in my great-great-great-grandfather's barn. So, that was that part of it. I was going to go to the cemetery, and then I forgot to ask him about it, and it was getting late anyways. So we went back to the motel and
did some rock counting, though. That's where she saw her snake.
yeah, that's true. We did stop at a park before we went back to the motel, and that's where I recorded the baby rattlesnake swimming right where we were looking for rocks. I was like, what is that? And it was pretty small, and I thought, that's probably not anything bad. And then I took the video of it, and I blew the picture up so that I could see it, and it definitely had a triangle head on it, which is part of the Viper class. So, and I took a little closer look at the pattern on his skin, and it did have diamonds on it. So it was a little diamondback rattler, a western diamondback rattler. Okay, so after that, then we went back to the room.
Yeah, we stayed in the Broadway Inn. They also had a casino and a bar/restaurant there. We ate dinner there. It was pretty good. We both had tacos that they had.
Yeah.
Typical bar food, but I've been finding out that we don't go to bars much, but the last few times we actually went into one by accident, the food was acceptable.
Yeah. We stopped at one in Sisters that they had the most incredible sandwich there that I had. It was very good. It was a Philly cheesesteak sandwich, and it was yummy.
So after our dinner, we just went and played with the pugs a little bit inside the room, and we got up the next morning and beat feet out of Missoula, headed to Phillipsburg, Montana.
Oh yeah, in Phillipsburg, duh. I'm like rattling my brain here for a minute. Okay, so when we went to Phillipsburg, we went to a
Sapphire gem shop.
Yeah, it was Gem Mountain. And we went in and we looked at their store and all the stuff they have there that they sell. And they have some really cool stuff in there. They have an artist that does wood crafting. They had metal crafts in there. They had all kinds of leather type stuff in there, as well as like cow hides and all kinds of stuff. But the main thing they had in there was sapphire jewelry. And one of the things that they do is they sell different quantities of material from Gem Mountain. And you can either do it there, or you can take it home. And we chose 2 bags to bring home with us. And Scott will have a video on that when we go through those and see what was in our bags.
So after we left Phillipsburg, we just went on down into Billings, and we were there for 5 nights. We stayed at the Extended Stay America. At first, it was kind of a hassle because they bounced us from room to room to room when we were in the when I was in the check-in process. But we ended up in a room that was acceptable for the pugs. but the bed was pretty bad. So there's part of the bad. The good part about that place was the staff.
They were great. They were absolutely great. And especially one of the ladies that was in charge there, I believe her name was Karen.
One of the good ones.
Yeah. She was a good Karen. She was so nice. She had 8 dogs herself. So, you know, she loved Rocky and Jewel. She just thought they were a kick in the pants. Anyway, all of their staff was great. There was another guy that was at the desk a couple of times that we were up there, and he was great. And yeah, so it was nice. Oh yeah, and there was even some guests there that were really nice too. They came and searched us out in the parking lot so that they could play with the puppies.
If we wanted to, we could have turned that entire hotel upside down with the 2 pups.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody who came across them just took time out and played with them for a few minutes.
Yeah.
So while we were in Billings, the main purpose of it was to go rock hounding the Yellowstone River. And we rock hounded over those following 4 days a stretch from as far downriver as Custer to back up to the Billings area. And that's about a 80 mile stretch of river that I had researched out and found the public access points. And so we just went there and looked for rocks. I mean, nothing exciting. Found a lot of petrified wood. Found not very much Montana moss agate. We also found a bunch of other stuff that just looked cool to us. And that's what was important, is it looked good to us.
Right.
We had dinner at some different places. First night was at Outback, because our first choice, Cracker Barrel, was stuffed to the gills with nearly a 45-minute wait. And I am an impatient person. I do not wait that long for a meal. I will go elsewhere. From there, we went to another steakhouse, Texas Roadhouse, and the same thing there. There's people lined up almost around the block trying to get in there.
Yeah.
So out of desperation, we went to Outback, and they were pretty good. The service was pretty good. Again, sat in the bar area. I think we're starting to be a bunch of alcoholics,
Yeah.
even though we don't drink anything.
Well, we didn't have a drop to drink, as a matter of fact, on our whole vacation.
And we just had a good meal, good service, very happy with it. The following night, we went to Pizza Ranch, and their pizza was pretty good. What's interesting about them is that you can go in there and request a specialty pizza. They'll make it, and they'll bring it to your table, and you can take as much of it as you want.
And whatever you don't want, then they'll just put it out there on the
buffet.
table for everyone.
Yeah, on the buffet.
Yeah.
The service there was absolutely phenomenal. One of the gentlemen that took our initial order and stuff was fantastic. He wanted to make sure that everything was just absolutely perfect for us, since we told him it was our first time to Pizza Ranch. Then we ate at a Cracker Barrel, and most everybody who is eating at a Cracker Barrel knows what they're like. I mean, really nothing spectacular.
Oh, bite your tongue.
I
liked their food.
They were pretty good.
Reminds me of the South. So I thought it was awesome. And, you know, it's only been within the last couple of years that we've even had them over here in the West. You know, there is quite a stretch in there.
And then after that, for another meal, we just walked down the street to a restaurant casino, and walked in there, and you felt like that you're in an old school diner with the modern feel, modern twist to it. But you can still see the cooks and the chefs doing their work. They had a front bar seating area and typical booth style seating, and they had a pretty good menu. I was really impressed with what they had.
Yeah, it was really nice. The only problem that I had with it was that the French fries were like way too salty.
Yeah, they ground up an entire salt lick on those French fries.
Yeah, that was my only disappointment about it. But the rest of it was really good, and the service was really good.
And then we did a fast food one day for dinner, and that was at Taco John's.
Oh
And
my goodness, that was really good. I remember that now.
that was surprisingly good. I mean, Ann Receipt got a huge burrito, and it was fully loaded. It was fantastic. I had to finish it off, and then I got some 2 or 3 smaller burritos. So for fast food, for a taco place and burritos, if you have a Taco John's near you, I would say go check them out.
Yeah, they were really good. We don't have them here in Oregon, as far as I know.
No, I never heard of one before until we got there to Billings and we saw it. I looked up their menu online and I said, let's give it a try. So we went in there and tried it, and hey, it's good.
Yep, not bad. Not bad at all.
So our overall experience in Billings was good. I mean,
it was good. We ended up meeting another YouTuber while we were there also.
His YouTube channel is 406 Findings. But he has a little specialty niche in the rock hounding world where he takes the slabs of rocks that he cuts and makes artwork out. Basically, it's fishing lures. You can't use them, so it's basically for display. And he cannot keep those things in stock. Every time he has some that's made, they're immediately sold. He's got a pretty high demand for them. And what I did too is I helped him out, and we bought a bucket of Montana moss agate, and then he threw in some other agates as well as some petrified wood. And this is all material that was too big for his little saw for him to cut. And he said he would have never done anything with it, and he wanted to go to somebody who would actually be able to use it. So
yeah, that was very nice of him.
So he was just going to give it to us, and no, I'm not going to do that. So came up with a reasonable price to pay for it, and it's a pretty good material. I'm looking forward to starting being able to work it. So after that, we left Billings to head south
to Cody, Wyoming.
Now, we were originally, when we set up this trip, we set it up in earlier this year. But as everyone knows, Yellowstone National Park and the surrounding rivers had a major flooding event in June. That'd be June 2022. That completely shut down the north entrance and the northeast entrance. So that left us only from Billings to go down into Cody to get in there. But that was not a bad thing. It turned out to be very good because we stopped off at...
Yeah, we stopped off at the museum that they have there. We wanted to go to the Wild Bill...
Buffalo Bill.
Buffalo Bill, Wild Bill Museum. And it had changed some, like a great big amount since the last time I was there. It was just a little tiny museum when I was there many moons ago. And so I was really surprised. It was actually a combination of 5 different museums. And my husband and I both were very intrigued with the firearms museum. Yeah, the Pew Pew Museum. That was awesome. They had so many. It was crazy. Anything that you could think of, they probably have it there. And if they don't have it on display, It's probably down in their library. It's just massive. It's huge. And then they had some natural artwork, and then they had a native section and a Native American Indian section, which was very interesting. And then of course they had the Wild or Buffalo Bill museum, and then they had one of
nature art.
Yeah, nature art. And yeah, we spent hours in there. And of course, we would take breaks after each one, and we'd go out and play with the dogs and take them out and, you know, make sure that everything was good. It was a nice, cool day, so we were lucky on that. And then we got something to eat while we were in the museum, and it was okay. It was enough for us. We went and got gas, and I saw a sign that said DQ, and I go, boy, that sounds really good right now. And so he turned around and he went back into Cody to the DQ and got us milkshake. Well, he likes his blizzards, and I just got a strawberry milkshake. So that was good.
From there, we went to the next place that we stayed the night. It was Green River Motel and RV Park or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
I'll put the actual name of it down here in the bottom. And it was a small mom and pop motel. It was nothing fancy. The bed was bad, but the surrounding area was very cool, and there was this very eccentric multi-story building up on the hill behind this motel.
Yeah, most of you have seen it already. Most of my subscribers have seen it already. There was a spooky looking, actually, structure that was up on a hill behind the motel. And the first night I was there, I was trying to figure it out. What on earth is that? What on earth is that? And then, so, you know, I did a little short video on that, and I posted it. And then Scott realized that inside of our room there was this little, like, newspaper article about a person that had met the owner of that structure and had gotten a little bit of information about him. And so I read the article, and the next day I put together the story behind the spooky house, based on what this person had said, you know, when they met him only 10 years into the construction of that house, which he had worked on it for, by the time he passed away, he had been working on it for 18 years. And he was only 48 years old when he passed away.
And basically the house killed him. He fell off it.
Yeah. And there was something in one of the things that I read about him where he actually joked that the house was going to be the death of him.
So that was interesting. Now the next day we got up and it was ugly. The surrounding area was absolutely beautiful, but the wind was blowing 40 to 50 miles an hour, and that made some of our video plans thrown out the window. Yeah. It was kind of disheartening at first, so we just hit the road and got into Yellowstone National Park, and within the first 5 miles of less than 5 miles, about 2 miles after we got into the park, we were greeted with a very large buffalo walking down the road.
Yeah, and this was a mountain road. So this wasn't like he was, near some open land or anything. He was just walking down the side of the road along a mountain road. So, there was like sheer drop off on one side and a sheer wall on the other. So he must have traveled quite a while on that road.
So we bounced around Yellowstone Park for a while, got to the Yellowstone Lake Yellowstone or Yellowstone Lake. Enjoyed that place. That lake is just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, it's huge, massive.
And we went up to the Canyons Village, and that's where we were staying. So we went there and we got checked in, and instead of staying there at the motel, we got our keys, and then we immediately just decided, let's go goof off. That's what we're here for. We're not there to be in a cabin. We're there to see the sights. So we took off and went on the Northern Grand Loop. Is that what it is?
Okay, so we went on the Southern Rim Drive, South Rim Drive.
Well, that was going into Canyon Village.
Right. And, we went on that drive and we drove clear out to a place called Artist Point. And we saw the most beautiful view of the lower falls. And it was just gorgeous. And in the place where you view it at, it was just a gorgeous little park area. I just loved it. And then after we left there, I believe there was a little turnoff that we took and it took us to Tower Falls, right?
Tower Falls was
the bridge. It was that bridge, deck of the bridge, or bridge of the something. Anyways, when you went into that park, it was actually the top of the upper falls.
That was on the northern. Yep.
Well, we went clear out on the northern loop, clear out to Inspiration Point, and we could see the lower falls and the canyon. That canyon was impressive. And you could see the lower falls off in the distance, or the upper fall. I think it was the lower falls.
Yeah, that was the lower falls.
It was absolutely beautiful, even from that distance away. And then from there,
we just bounced around. I mean,
we took the northern loop, and
yeah, we took the northern loops. She mentioned the Tower Falls. We stopped off. We saw them. They were very beautiful, impressive.
Right.
And we just took our time and went around all the different sites that we saw. If we saw a street sign about something, we stopped. We looked at it. We enjoyed it. And then we worked our way up around to Mammoth Hot Springs.
Yeah. That was very cool. That was very cool.
And when we got into the village area, there were some elk in the village, and a big, beautiful bull elk just strutting his stuff. He owned the place.
He had a set of racks on him you wouldn't believe. They were huge.
So, and then we went to the actual springs themselves and saw all the limestone deposits that came up with the water and how white it looked, and saw all the different layers and
terraces.
Things. Yep. And so we saw it from below, and then we drove down the road, and then we went above them and was able to look at them from above.
Yeah, that was great. That was awesome. There were some things that we missed along the way, and on both loops that we missed along the way, but one day we hope to go back.
Hope we do. It's definitely a goal of ours to go back so we can enjoy it again. And I'm being cautious right now because that white SUV is the same design, same type as our local sheriff's office is, and it's got the antennas on it, so it looks like it is a sheriff's vehicle. So I got to keep my foot out of it.
Yeah. So, anyway, so by the time we finished that loop, we went back and we were trying to find something to eat.
Well, first we went to our room. Or did we go? Yeah, we went to our room first. And realized that we were paying extraordinarily high rates, and they don't even bother to put a refrigerator or a microwave in their rooms.
Yep, neither one.
So that ruined like breakfast plans that we had because we had food with us. Thankfully, we have a 12-volt cooler. This is a good thing. That 12-volt cooler we could plug into a cigarette outlet, and then we've got an adapter to go to a 120. And that cooler has been a rock star the entire trip. So that was a good thing. But back to the room,
I thought it was cute. It was cute, but it did lack some, comforting things that we could have had, and they should have thought of, especially in this day and time, and especially with the food that was there in the park, the situation.
We did go to the cafe. We walked in there, and I immediately felt like I walked into an army mess hall. I did not like that feeling in there whatsoever. We walked out, then walked back in, found another section where they were serving what they were calling Asian food, and it was absolutely horrific.
It was awful. It was disgusting. Even the green beans were these little tiny things. I mean, they were maybe a quarter the size of a pencil width, and they weren't cooked. And some of them even had the stem still on them. And I don't know what they put over the top of it. Was some kind of oily garlic something. Anyways, it was nasty, and I couldn't even chew those little things they call the green beans.
So we got the bugs settled down that night. Step outside, you could listen to the elk bugling.
Oh yeah, all night long you could hear them.
That was truly an incredible experience. The next day we got up and we zipped down to Old Faithful.
Okay, so our second day, we got up really early in the morning and we headed out. Scott wanted to be at Old Faithful by the time that it erupted, so we had to get on the road and get down to that area. So we bypassed everything originally that we passed, and then we got there, and Old Faithful wasn't supposed to erupt again until...
She was erupting when we stepped out of the rig. So we looked at the schedule, and there was another geyser called the Castle Geyser. And that was the next one to erupt. So we went over there and watched it and waited for it and waited and waited, and when it finally erupted, it put on one heck of a show.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And then from there, because the Castle Geyser eruption was for like 20 minutes, we again missed the next Old Faithful eruption. So we bounced around and did some shopping stuff, and wandered around and just took a good old sweet time. Looked at the local buffalo that was there. It's like their mascot for the Old Faithful area.
Yeah, I got him when he turned up. I got a picture of him when he turned upside down and kicked his legs in the air.
And I got some really good close-up pictures of him from a distance.
Yes, from a distance, a safe distance.
And he was the center of attention. Then it was time to head over to where the Old Faithful viewing area was. We went there and waited for her to erupt, and she did not disappoint.
Nope. She was definitely within the 10-minute window.
So from there, we headed back to the north.
Yep, and we stopped at almost all of the geysers that were along there and the springs. The colorful hot springs and stuff that they have, and they were just beautiful. The one major one that I wanted to go see, well, wait, before that, we went to the artist paint pots, is that what it was? And yeah, that one, or the artist fountains.
Right.
And that was pretty cool. I think those were like mud pots or something like that. And then they had colors and all that kind of stuff. But the main spring that I wanted to see is the one that you see all of those gorgeous pictures of with all the colors. It's called the Grand Prismatic Springs. We went there to that parking lot and it was so stuffed full, and there were cars waiting in line for other cars to leave. So we decided at that point that we would just go on and that we would catch it in the morning on our way out of Yellowstone.
So we went up further along the Firehole River, stopped at the campground along the Firehole, not campground, but the picnic area at the Firehole River, and let the pugs out, let them enjoy, just get out and stretch their legs a little bit, but the water was too cold for them to get their little feet in. And then we took a Firehole Canyon road, and that was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, that was incredible. They, the drive that they have that's along the Firehole River, they also have a Firehole Falls that was on there, and it was absolutely beautiful. And that was great, and we saw that. And after we left that, we stopped at a couple of other geysers on our way back that were really interesting and cool. They had very pretty colors. And then we took another side road, and it was called the Virginia Cascades. And that was really cool.
So that pretty much concluded our second day there in the park. Went back to the cafe, had an absolutely horrible dinner, went into the store there, and I bought the most expensive bag of chips I've ever bought in my entire life by accident. Didn't realize that's how expensive they were going to be, because no prices were posted.
Yeah, we bought one small bag of Doritos and 2 drinks, and the total was over $15 for those 3 items.
So I think if we still have the empty bag of Doritos, and we might just frame it. So that night we went to bed, got there early the next morning, and we went down to that
Grand Prismatic Springs.
And unfortunately, it was fogged in.
Yeah. We did take the walk, and we did take the videos of the area, but unfortunately we did not get to see it in its full glory.
So we headed on south.
In half a mile, keep left to continue on Mission Street south.
We just headed on south to the south entrance of Yellowstone. And just before we left the park, I mean, there are other waterfalls and stuff that we stopped at. And
Kepler Falls.
yes,
was one
Kepler
of them.
Falls. There was another falls too that we wanted to stop at, but we couldn't due to the area being closed for road construction.
And then further down the last falls, Moose Falls,
No place to park.
there was no place to park. Yeah.
So we stopped off at the picnic area that's just north of the south entrance, and that's where the Snake River is at in the Yellowstone, and that was pretty cool because we went over the Snake River a few other times in our travel getting to the Yellowstone, and there we were towards the upper end of the Snake River on the east side of the Rockies.
Yeah, one thing that we failed to mention too is that on our descent from Canyon Village down to the exit of, the south entrance of Yellowstone, we crossed the Continental Divide 3 times.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Over 8,000 feet.
Yeah.
Then we left the park, went through the, what was that, the John D. Rockefeller Jr. Parkway.
Memorial Parkway.
Yeah, it was really nothing spectacular. There was supposed to be like bison in there and moose, and we didn't see any of that. So we just kept on going down into the Grand Tetons National Park.
I loved the Grand Tetons National Park. It was so beautiful. We stopped at the first turn to go down to where the marina was, and everything was closing really quick, but we were able to get into the store like 5 minutes
before they closed.
5 minutes before they closed, and we grabbed a couple of magnets, and it was just perfect. We got the perfect ones too.
They were closing it on Sunday at 11 a.m. for the season. So we got in there the last 5 minutes of them being open for the season.
Yeah.
Got back on the road and started following some of the other roads around. The views were incredible. Got some just incredible pictures for you that we shared with you in the other videos. And then we decided to stop for lunch, and didn't know that was my intent. I just pulled off into a viewing area, backed up to it, and we had the absolute most spectacular views for a lunch break.
Yep. And we also stopped and viewed Jenny Lake in front of the Tetons, and beyond that we made a few other stops. One of them was a very important stop for me, and I'm not going to talk about it right at the moment. You'll have to watch the video on it, but it was something I'd always wanted to see firsthand, and I was able to do it.
From there, we just left the Grand Tetons. The Grand Teton National Park is like a driving park. Yes, there's plenty of hiking trails and stuff like that, but the focus is the mountains themselves, and that's what we paid attention to. Then we left there, went down into Jackson,
formerly known as Jackson Hole.
Less than impressed. We drove through there as fast as we could to get the heck out, and then we headed up over the pass to go into Victor, Idaho. And driving over that pass was an experience at a 10% grade at over 7,000 feet.
Yeah.
I'm glad I was not pulling a trailer over that pass, and so any of you RVers that's doing that, go around the long way. Follow the Snake River around. Do not go the short route. because your vehicle may not make it. We got over that, down into Victor, and then we took the road to get us over to Idaho Falls, because that was going to be our intended place to stay the night until we got there.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I'm not going to get into the details about it, but it was the ugly, for sure.
Yeah.
My gut instincts kicked in full swing, and she had some of her stuff unpacked into sent it in the room. I said, "Go get it. We're out of here now." She didn't even argue with me. Didn't know nothing. She went inside, grabbed it. We threw the pugs in. I walked up to the front counter and I explained to them, "I cannot stay here." They said they apologized. They said they'd refund my cancellation notice. We got in the rig, grabbed a burger, and headed to Gooding, Idaho.
Yep.
On the way, and yes, we're blinded. I'm sorry, you guys. We got a dirty windshield with the sun right in our face.
Yeah.
On the way there, similar situation, sun right in our face, but the views were just incredible. We got telephone reservations set up for the historic Lincoln Inn. Now, you might be wondering, what is so special about Gooding, Idaho? And she's sitting here looking at me confused.
I am. I'm a
And
little confused.
we were just there picking up some incredible rocks from the Idaho Rock Shop.
Well, I didn't know that was, what he meant. The historic hotel that we stayed in, they've done a lot of remodeling on that, and it was very, very nice. Unfortunately, it's located on a semi-busy road.
Blocks away from the railroad tracks.
Yeah. But they have done a very nice job on restoring that hotel.
And it was better than our first option, staying in Idaho Falls.
And we both love staying in hotels where you actually have the doors to the outdoors from your room instead of into a hallway where you have to go through 2 or 3 other sets of doors just to get outside.
So that was we didn't get very much sleep that night due to the noise, but the room, I would recommend that place based on the rooms.
Oh yeah, their shower was huge.
Yeah, it was a beautiful little hotel. After that, we met with the owner of the Idaho Rock Shop across the street from the historic Lincoln Inn, and we went to the Western Cafe for breakfast, sat down and had a conversation with him, and then he took us out to his rock piles where we were able to pick rocks. Those videos are over on my channel.
Yeah.
But we got about 300 pounds, yes, 300 pounds of some incredible material. Plus some. He showed us some of the petrified wood that he was able to acquire from a guy selling it off. That was probably about 10 tons of petrified wood that he was showing us.
Oh my goodness. There were some that I go, are you selling that petrified wood like right now? And he said, yeah, I'll sell some. He goes, what, did you find something that you wanted? And I was like, yeah, of course, and so there were 2 really special pieces that I picked out of those piles, and he just threw it in with the rest of them.
Yeah,
he was really, really nice.
Yeah, we weighed everything up, and then he came up with a price, and you couldn't argue with it. I mean, it was fantastic. So from there, we ended up heading to, where did we go after that? Oh, we went to
the rest area.
Yeah, we stopped at the rest area where we played with the pugs for a while, laying out in the grass.
Oh yeah, that rest area that they had. Oh my goodness.
Is-
Idaho has very nice rest stops.
Yeah, this one was on Interstate 84, just east of Boise. And so we played with the pugs for about a half hour out on the grass. And then all part of this trip here, we were intended in just staying in Burns, Oregon that night for this final night. Well, a couple days prior to this, actually when we were in Cody, my boss called me and said, "Hey, are you going through Burns? Or are you in Burns?" I says, "We'll be going through there." So I took a job for my work to inspect a property called Crane Hot Springs, and it's outside of the town of Crane, Oregon. And we set up reservations for us to stay there, so we drove there that night, and they screwed up the reservations. So we went into Burns and stayed at the Travel Lodge, and it's called the Travel Hole.
It was the
Days Inn. That's right, the Days Inn. It was absolutely.
They're the only place in Burns that is pet friendly.
Yep.
So we had no choice.
And oh, by the way, if you're wondering where we're at, we're in downtown Salem, and I can't wait to get out of here.
Yeah.
I'm uneasy right now. I'm not liking this. We used to be in here every day, and I don't like this. Mainly because the traffic lights are horrible, and people just won't go there. The Days Inn was absolutely disgustingly horrible. I'll give them credit though. They were doing a remodel, and half of the units were basically blown out, being remodeled, and the half that we were in hasn't been remodeled yet. So hopefully in a year, the entire building will be remodeled. So after that, I went down, did my job back in Crane Hot Springs, and from there we left and jumped on Highway 20, headed west. I surprised Ann with a little secret rock hounding spot that we know of, because she didn't think we were going to stop, and we stopped for about 2 hours, picked up about 100 pounds of rocks, and we continued on Highway 20 west through Bend and Sisters and up over the Cascades. Got to Highway 22,
And we're about a half hour away from, or half hour to 45 minutes away from our home.
So now as we go up over the Marion Street Bridge, over the Willamette River into the direction of our home, we're going to bring this one to an end.
Thank you so much for watching. We appreciate it. Let us know what you think below.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.